haven't filled an evaluation out, make sure you do, because there is a note on there. Because I'm sure many of you are thinking, well, why am I not an honoree? Or I have somebody on my team that could have been an honoree. So I'm sure there's a lot of people we miss. So we hope that you'll help support this. But in the meantime, we do want to honor, I know some of the honorees have left, but as some people did, because people had to get back to their office, but we do have a gratitude of our appreciation, and we just want to acknowledge them right now. So we'll start with Lorna Wagner, who is the Director of Training and Certification from EC First. Thank you, Lorna, and she'll be sitting on our panel in Des Moines. And then I have Matt Duell from Trevi Pay. He's their CISO. Matt, are you here? Isn't that where you used to work? Yep. Did he take your job? Yep. Okay. All right. Well, he must have got called back to work or is on a meeting. Okay. I have Nicole Windholz, who's the CISO of OnSpring, who I just got the opportunity to chat with. So thank you for being here. And she's part of the Women in Security, that whole chapter, which is a great chapter. Patrick Stapleton, he is the Senior IT Security and Risk Analyst at Capital Federal Savings Bank. Congratulations. Randy Dickey is the Senior Director in IT Infrastructure and Ops at Evergy. Randy, are you still here? Okay, we have Rick Special, who I got to talk to him and his wife, and I said your last name right. He's the SVP and Director of Internal Audit of North American Savings Bank. Oh, and right behind him is Kara Special, who is the CISO at Children's Mercy. I have Kim Bloch, who is the Cybersecurity Manager at Leidos. Kim, are you still here? Come on over, Kim. I have Sarah Funke, who is the Security Risk and Compliance Analyst at Johnson County, Kansas. So I have this person, I just have to take a moment to say a little bit about her. I have Yvette Karanja, and she actually came around 3 or 4 years ago, and she was volunteering at a registration desk as she was going to school. And then she did an intern at BCD Travel. And then now, I'm so proud of her, she's an IT analyst at the Kansas Bureau of Investigations and graduated. She's like just a wonderful story. And we have so many of our volunteers that work our desks that end up, we see out there as a practitioner. So congratulations. Ali Nasser is a manager of information security at SelectQuote. Congratulations, that almost fell out. Ashley Hardwick is the manager of IT audit at UMB Financial. All right, she's not here. David Chapman is the director of identity access management at PenFed Credit Union. David, are you here still? See, these people are so important, they can't even stay all day. Okay, Holly, is it Giamonic? Well, she is the Director of Information Security at Greater Kansas City Community Foundation. Are you here, Holly? Okay, well, she didn't hear me mess her last name up. So, okay, Jennifer Bush is Senior Program Manager at United Lex. So nice to see so many women getting these certificates. Jessica Walton is the IT Solutions Manager at American Public Works Association. Are you in here, Jessica? Some of these women, too, I hope they're not overworking the booth at the WCs and the Women in Security. John Drakey is the IT Director at Universal Engraving. John, are you here still? All right, excellent. I know Casey Ballinger should be here, Senior Information Security Specialist at, he just left. He's been here all day. Trista, Science and Technology. All right. Okay, now I have our infamous keynote speaker, Bill Kim, who is the SVP, Chief Information Security Officer at Security Bank of Kansas City, and you did an amazing job as our keynote speaker today. Nathaniel Cole, who is the Chief Information Security Officer at WorkWave, and back with us this year. He was supposed to be on our panel last year and got a little ill, so we're happy to have you. Marc Johnson is the CISO at Impact Advisors, and Marc, thank you so much. He has sat on several of our panels, so we appreciate your commitment. Jonathan Kimmitt, he is at Alias CyberSecurity, but he was a former CISO at the University of Tulsa forever, like 20 years, and he also helps me co-host my And Security for All podcast, and I really appreciate it. And he came here from Tulsa today, and he's going to be moderating our panel. So thank you, Jonathan, for all your support of FutureCon. So everyone, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the panel. I kind of just introduced them, but they're all going to be talking, so let's welcome our panelists.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the panel to being here today. This is going to be a lot of fun. We have a great group of CISOs up here on the table, and this is a great opportunity to ask questions. In fact, we love it when we're on the panel for you guys to ask us questions. If there are things that you want to know, maybe clarifications from the presentations earlier, or even just topics that we covered today, please ask. That's what we want. We want to get that engagement in. We do have lots of different questions we're going to start with. One of the things I want to do first is I want to go down the table here, starting with Bill, and just kind of give a quick overview of who you are, and then tell us why you're here. You know, what is it you want to provide to the audience and the panel?
Well, in IT security, my goodness, you can look at a dust storm and it can be IT security. You can look at anything. What I'm here to do is try to interact with folks and get a better understanding myself of what the landscape is like, and maybe share part of my experience with folks and be able to, we're all in this together, basically. We've got several financial institutions here. I'm friends with most of the CISOs and people that do IT security. There's no competition. We're all in this together. So it's good to just collaborate. That's why I'm here.
That's great. We love that. Okay, next.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to echo what Bill's saying. I want to get back to the community. Over my career, I've had a lot of great leaders and a lot of great opportunities at conferences like this to learn. And that's probably my biggest thing, is coming in and helping to get back to the community and hopefully answer questions and be honest about the answers and not try to sugarcoat, maybe how things are operating for my company.
Excellent. And Marc Johnson, CISO, recovering CIO. Love to give back to the community, because they're all right. If we're not talking to each other, then we're not helping each other. So that's what it's all about.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started with some of the questions. I'm going to start with one of the questions that's not on the list here, and this really came up from the presentations earlier, and I thought it was a really good lead-in on the concept of why people are here, what they're getting, and then how do they take that back to their organization. So the question is, as a security professional, how do you grow into a position to help educate leadership and the organization about risk? And specifically, how do you get a seat at the table? So the question came up in the presentation of how many people here are decision makers? You see the things that we see, but do you get to go back to your organization and make changes? So for the panel, I'd like to have everyone answer this. How does somebody go from maybe an entry-level security professional, which is not entry-level, by the way, but that level, And how do they get themselves up into a position that they can really make changes in the environment?
So I'll jump in on this one. So I think the biggest thing that you could do is not just focusing on the technical skills and the security skill sets that you need to be able to operate as a security practitioner, but focusing on learning the business. That's probably the biggest thing that I've done throughout my career, because it allows you to start to frame things in terms of the business, not just, the roof is on fire, okay, but why does the business care at this point? Because they're currently outside doing other things. I think that's probably my biggest thing is really, working on your soft skills, working on communication, and then working on understanding the business and how it operates.
I'll really piggyback on that to say soft skills are extremely important in making sure you can talk English, not acronyms, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt is not the way to express risk to any business. If you help them understand how to do it more efficiently and securely and not be the Department of No, you've won it. And I'd go back to entry level, it's going to be hard sometimes to break in, but you need to make sure that your HR folks, your recruiters know a lot of these skill sets are in short supply. So asking for 5 to 10 years worth of experience is not realistic. Mentor it, build it, grow it.
And that really comes from all levels in an organization. If you make yourself available to anybody at any part of the organization to just have an interaction with, just, hey, do you listen to any podcasts? Have you read any interesting articles? Do you have anything to bring? Have a seat at the table, because I want you to be at the table. We can't hear everything. We can't see everything. We can't learn everything. My goodness, I count on a lot of people to know more than I can ever absorb. And so sometimes having a seat at the table is just maybe making yourself available to be available for the table, or just ask a question. Hey, do we do this?
Yep. So let me ask the audience real quick. How many people here would be comfortable being on a panel like this? Right now, if you could walk up, sit down, and be asked random questions. Okay. Now, so let's go back to the panel. You guys talked about soft skills and how important they are. For the people who are here who do want to grow those soft skills and to be comfortable being that person, do you guys have any advice, any recommendations to how to get started on that, to feel more comfortable on that?
When the speaker from Menlo Security was in the back getting his mic on, he said, I'm great one-on-one, because sales presentations, and it's really easy to do one-on-one. But looking at an entire room full of people, and we sit at those tables, we know what goes through your mind. We're looking, I've got 6 emails, I've got a deadline, I've got a meeting tomorrow morning at 9, and did you hear the thing? And you start a conversation with the guy next to you. But if you can just find a way to be comfortable, just make eye contact with one person. And if they look away, you made them nervous, but that's okay. Look at their forehead or find somebody else and just be able to engage them. And you're just looking at people one-on-one and just having a conversation one-on-one. It's uncomfortable sometimes to get to that place where you can look at somebody and I just looked away. Because when you're looking in the eyes, it's a personal thing. But that's how you get some of those skills. And especially in our organization where you said, don't talk in acronyms. Be able to relate to people in functional language that makes them understand what you're doing.
Yeah, this is going to seem pretty basic and kind of out of the bailiwick of most engineers. Take public speaking or theater.
Yep.
Understand how to think about how you're presenting yourself, how you're engaging your audience. So get out there and get some training. Go to the local community college, Johnson Community College, right? Let's get out there and understand how we present ourselves and how to make sure that we're confident in what we're doing, not just, hey, we have a passion. The passion's great, but learn how to present it.
So I'll jump in and say I'm a learned extrovert. Naturally, I am an introvert. So this is something that is learned. It's capable of being learned just like anything else on the technical side. It takes reps. It takes actively going out and doing it. You can start off in small groups with engineers. Say if you're an application security specialist, start talking to groups of developers or teams of developers. Come up with some presentations and start to present to the larger part of the organization. Go and talk to your senior leaders that are regularly presenting and ask for tips from them and just have conversations. Ultimately, you'll find that you're just talking to other people. And in most cases, even if they are your senior, your executives, ultimately they are going to be engaged and listened. And so it's really not something to be super scared about. But the other thing I would throw out there is you need to find the right approach for yourself as well. In public speaking, I got into a lot of trouble because they told me I have to have everything written down on cards. That's not what's best for me. Having maybe a few notes, topic ideas, key points is what's best, because if I have it on the card, I focus too much on what's on the card versus actually just talking. That doesn't work for everybody. Some people need broader topics written down. So experiment and try to find what works best for you when you're talking in larger groups like this.
And my advice is watch other speakers. I can tell you that I saw things today that, and I speak a lot. I think I've spoken over 300 conferences, 60 times a year, something like that. But there were speakers up here today that I'm like, I want to do that. I want to get the reaction of the audience just like they did. And so while I was taking notes of the content, I was also taking notes of what they did and how they said it and how they presented it. So a lot of this is learn. Go and watch other speakers and mimic that. And if you see a speaker that really hooks into something on you, that's probably the type of speaker you are. If you watch a speaker and it's like, good content, but that doesn't really excite me, okay, that's fine. Try a different version. Now, you can see today, we had 8 speakers. I think it was 8 speakers. They all did it different. Everyone had a different flow. They had a different rhythm. And great presentations. You could probably find one of them that goes, I could do that. And you would be really successful at it. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to get right into some of the questions here. And for the panel, for anybody who wants to answer, any or all, what are the most significant emerging cybersecurity threats, and how should organizations prepare for them? And from this point of view, I want you to think about it that we're dealing with this year, that you're thinking about this year in 2025. So what are some of those emerging cybersecurity threats that are keeping you up at night?
So first I'd say third party. Third party, we all know, has been problematic from the get-go, but it's getting more and more significant. Breaches are happening because of third parties. You can have all the protection in the world. You can have the greatest moat in the world. You can have the greatest castle wall. But if you got a back door because of a partner, there's a problem. How do we take care of that? APIs are kind of in that same vein that says, hey, we need to protect APIs from giving back bad information or more information than they should be. So think about that. Future, quantum.
Sure, absolutely.
In the same vein as third party, the free to use that products out there, your SaaS applications, man, I hate those things. Wow. Can I? My wife hates it when I say this, but I'll say it anyways. If the product is free, you're the product, and I keep telling my organization that. So Grammarly, anybody here use Grammarly? Okay, I'll call this one out. Go read the terms of use. The free product, everything you write goes back into their model to train their product. So those are the ones on the third-party side that honestly have me most worried, because those are the hardest, especially with a company that is remote. We don't have a central office that everybody's in on a regular basis, so we're trying to manage assets in a very remote posture. And people just have right now have free reign, right, to go use what they want to use. And then I still think data is possibly one of the biggest risks to an organization right now. Whether you are properly protecting it or you're retaining too much data for too long. This extends into data privacy, but ultimately, I think that's one of our biggest risks that we have that we need to continue to manage, because every company, no matter what you do right now, is wanting all of the data, and they want data analytics, and now that we have AI that can do a lot more with that data, it's becoming even more important to have that data, and I'm looking at going, do we really need all of it? Are we doing the right things with it, or should we be removing it from the organization?
And I would even say our people. It's not an emerging threat. It is a constant threat. And it's not that they do anything wrong. It's that our cybersecurity awareness training is only as effective as it is. And everybody's cybersecurity awareness training is as effective as it is. Your people can absorb it, your people can, and then they won't click on any message at all. Or they report every email as phishing. Or everything. Or they'll ask you, is this safe to open? And it's fear. It's not ignorance, it's fear. And we've trained them to be afraid of everything. And now we ask them to not trust anything. Okay, we don't trust anything. Click, 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 click. And my analysts are spending 40% of their time going through the quarantine saying, nope, this was from our CISO. This is not phishing. Well, yeah. And that is one of the things, we have a tally in my office. Every time I send out an all users email, how many are going to report it as junk or phishing? Nice. And we win prizes. It's great. But it is a threat to our organization, because if our people don't understand the external threat, they become the threat.
You know, speaking of threats, we over the last year, we have seen a significant amount of threats hit our environments from a lot of different ways. So we've had political uncertainty, we've had natural disasters, we've had cyber attacks, we've had all kinds of different things that maybe were not unique, but hit us over the last year that really had an effect on our organizations. Has any of those things really changed the way you have thought about interacting with your people, doing the training that you're doing, really prepping them for dealing with those natural disasters, or those incidents, or those events moving forward? Because we did have some very unique things happen in the last year.
We did have to have a small session on misinformation and the rise of misinformation campaigns from the artificial intelligence and my tinfoil hats in the car. But so many things, when you go to the zero trust and you try to teach people what is fake, it's all fake, honestly.
Yep.
So, but then nobody trusts anything, and I don't know. But misinformation was something we had to really circle back around and say, please double check, triple check, take 5 seconds and just consider, is this legitimate?
Okay.
I would say from some of the things that happened in the last year, to Bill's point, I've had a little bit more focus on people. As we all know, security is very, very broad. I don't know if anybody else has had this happen with them, but I've had executives ask, how is this a cybersecurity issue? Or how is this a security issue? And it's like, okay, well, if it impacts the viability of the company, impacts potentially how we operate, it kind of becomes a security issue. So one of the things would be related to the natural disasters, having a long talk with HR about how do we know where our employees are at, or if they were affected by Helene, or another hurricane that hit the East Coast, or a tornado an outbreak. As an organization, shouldn't we be reaching out to those employees to at least know that there's people here that care? Now, is it purely cybersecurity or security issue? No. But from my perspective, I want to know that they're okay and they're doing fine. The other area that I've really kind of focused in on, I'm sure other organizations have as well, with North Korea taking a more active approach in trying to get their individuals hired with the bait and switch, is realizing just how targeted HR is and starting to have some really strong conversations with them around, we really need to make sure we're careful on not just how we're talking to the candidates and properly vetting them, but also anything that comes in through that system should be considered suspect, not to scare them necessarily, but to make them aware that they are actively targeted. And so really working with them to try to put guardrails and safety measures and things in place for them to make sure that they're staying safe, that their credentials, their identities, their systems are not going to be attacked or compromised.
Yeah, so you know this thing, ChatGPT? The biggest thing that I find, again, back to the people, is not ignorance, not maliciousness, but not understanding that if you put something out in an LLM, it's there to stay.
Yeah.
There's no cleaning associated with it. There's no data verification. So the hallucinations only get worse. And so setting guidelines as to what you can put in a tool is one of the best things that I've found for the users. Not saying, no, you can't use ChatGPT. It's saying, you can, but this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, when we do things wrong, like using ChatGPT or put data in there that's not supposed to be there or use it for a purpose it's not designed for, that can regularly lead to an incident. So can you guys kind of talk to me a little bit about what are the pieces that you feel are critical to incident response? And how do organizations get better at it? We talked about risk earlier, and we talked about, okay, everything is gone. What do you do? But talk to me a little bit about the process. What do you think are the critical pieces of a good incident response process?
So I'm going to talk more macro at this point and then get into the micro. Macro, incident response is linked to disaster recovery, is linked to business continuity. Yep. Now hear me, those are distinctly different ownerships. Business continuity is owned by the business. Disaster recovery is owned by IT/infrastructure, incident response by InfoSec, right? All of those should have a command structure associated with it, and in my mind, it might be identical, it might not. But just make sure you understand that and your organization understands that. So from an overall perspective, don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions that, oh, the CISO is going to be there and he's going to direct everybody what to do. No. Understand you have to have the backup plan to understand that, hey, he might be taking care of his family, not prepared to come in and direct everybody. So get those plans, get them in 3-ring binders, get them available, but also understand people are human. They have family to protect. They may not be deceased, but they may not be available.
Do any of you have to comply with the NIMS at all? The National Incident Management System? There's a certification back when I worked in the government where you had to be NIMS certified at a certain level for whatever thing you were going to do. And NIMS, the National Incident Management System, has one level, I think it's NIMS 200, maybe 600, been a while. Incident response, if you are driving down the road and you watch a car in front of you flip, you roll 100 times, and you stop and you get out, you are the incident manager. You own that incident until somebody with greater authority comes on the scene and takes that incident from you. So be an incident manager and train your users to become incident managers. If they receive an email from a customer that's suspicious, and they call the customer and they say, oh yeah, I was compromised, that end user has become the incident manager for that business email compromise, and they start the process for the IRT. And then the whole team comes together and we go through the workflow. But teach everybody to become an incident manager until somebody else with a little more authority or knowledge or skill owns the incident at that point. Now, that's a real basic thing to say. You've got to have playbooks, you've got to have processes for each different incident, but not to just panic. Oh no, Cindy Lou called and they had a compromise, shut their accounts off. You can, but it's not necessary. Just keep your cool, own the incident, hand it off to the next person.
So if you've not been through an incident, it's easy to say, oh, these are the right things to do. I've throughout my career, been through 2 ransomware attacks. One as an FTE, as an individual contributor. One as a consultant where I was dropped in with about 5 hours of notice, including the flight out of Kansas City to get there. So some of these things are just things that I've learned throughout those incidents. But one of the biggest things I would say is within your incident response plan, make sure you have clear roles defined. As a CISO or a senior security leader, don't try to take on the full incident response. Know where know where your lane is at, but know where your expertise is at. So there's communication. Honestly, legal needs to own that one, in my opinion. There's internal employee communication, and that's a combination of legal and HR. There is engaging outside counsel. There's working, if you're PE owned or you're publicly traded, you're going to have those components that you need to probably go through outside counsel on. Ultimately, as a security practitioner, what we need to be focused in on is the identification, the containment, and the eradication, and then your recovery, right? That's what we need to be focusing on the most. There's a lot of CISOs that want to run the soups and nuts incident response plan: communication, external counsel, and employee management, recovery. Like, focus in on just making sure you're doing the investigation and that you're comfortable with the containment. Because one of the worst things that can happen is you think you've got it contained, you start to eradicate, and you realize, nope, they still have a domain admin somewhere else, and it gets a lot worse. So that's just my opinion. When you're building your incident response, is look for individuals that are going to own key components of your incident response plan, have pre-built communications, have talked through some decision points within the organization. Make sure that you have proper authority defined. Does the CISO have the authority to pull systems offline, or is that the CTO or CIO? Things like that will drastically help in your response, as well as helping you to stay calm during that incident and make clear decisions.
One of the things that I recommend to people is to learn this structure. The ICS 100 from FEMA's website. It's a free course. It is for regular non-cyber incident response, but is very easily adapted for what we do in cybersecurity. And what I tell people is, if you have an incident command team in cybersecurity that knows all the procedures, you fit in very nicely with any other incident command that the organization does, and any incident response at the city, the county, the state, or the federal level. You become part of the solution at that point. Free, it's pretty structured in terms of who the incident commander is, the logistics, communication, legal, all of those pieces, it's all laid out there. So I would recommend go spend a few hours, go through that course. It's free, it's on the website. It helped me significantly when I started doing incident response years ago, and it still helps people now because it gives them a structure on how to put all these pieces together. Yes, we have a question here. Oh, wait, hold on, we got the mic coming at you. Yep, we need it for the online people.
Question kind of goes to the already touched Grammarly and ChatGPT topic, and that is smartphones in cybersecurity and generally on the C level, for example, during discussions, meetings, and at work in general. With Alexa and Siri listening nicely. What are your thoughts on how to handle that in an appropriate manner for the business?
And I'm going to add to that, think about both personally owned devices and organizationally owned devices. So who would like to answer that one?
So I'll start with, first and foremost, the security training has to be more than just, here's what you do at work. It has to be the element of, This is for your life. This is for your personal time, because your personal hygiene leaks into corporate, right? So first and foremost there. Secondly, you talk about the executives. Have to have buy-in, number one, from them, that number one, they support what we're talking about, because number two, they're liable, right? It's not just the CISO. If I have spoken to and given them information, now there's a fiduciary responsibility that they have to follow through. So getting that buy-in is key. And that kind of goes back to the soft skills we talked about earlier. Getting consensus and understanding that it's not me as the Department of No, it's I want to help you, but you need to do this.
I think it depends on the business. It's not a cop-out, but I think it depends on the business and the risk tolerance, honestly. I think that goes back to what you're saying. I mean, I'll be honest, when it comes to non-corporate owned mobile phones, I have a real hard time with MDM. I'll go ma'am, and then at that point, like, I don't have a whole lot of control of what they do on their phone outside of it. So that's a risk that the business needs to take on. Or we need to issue corporate issued devices so I can do MDM. I really have a hard time with potentially wiping out somebody's photos on a personal phone. And I advocate for that. I've fought with auditors over that in the past on MDM versus MAM on personal devices. But I think we've been saying it goes back to the training of individuals and setting those policies for home work environment. I know a lot of companies have kind of embraced at least hybrid. And so we really need to be defining that in the policies and the expectations for our employees and training them. And I've, on multiple occasions, in fact, I just did it this week, talked in terms of what the impact is to you as an individual, what you should be doing to protect yourself. I just had an all hands with our company, and I was talking about data privacy and managing your own credentials in terms of personal, not in terms of company. I've sent out notifications about DeepSeek in the past as well, and it was in terms of personal. Hey, you might want to go review this for your personal use before you go use it, because the expectation's already been set that they're not supposed to be using that, right? Not necessarily the LLM DeepSeek, but the UI, web UI DeepSeek, which everything does go back to China. And then you're right, like with Alexa, I mean, they just made that change last month, where it's no longer local, it's now going into Amazon Cloud, and we know what they're going to be doing with that, right? Just like any other system, they're going to productize that. So I would, it's again, it goes back to setting those expectations for the work environment, both at home and at work, and making sure people understand, what they should be doing.
I think from the soft skills, we're talking about your leadership, that is huge, because I've had situations where the board has called me in a particularly bad time for the organization. There was death threats, there's all kinds of different things. And I was able to sweep the room and take cell phones out of the room. And they were perfectly fine with it. I carry a Faraday bag in my briefcase because I'm paranoid. I don't have the full hat yet. I'm getting a full hat, though. That's a good one. But if you've got that trust from your leadership, from the board, or whoever you're dealing with, then it's not very hard to be able to say, well, wait a minute, let's secure the room. And we take all the cell phones, put it in a Faraday bag, we take it to another room, and they're generally okay with it when it's serious. Now, if they think it's overreacting, sure. But there are times where it is appropriate to make that comment. And there are times where the board will go, you're right. This is something we should do. But it's a trust issue. If they trust you, then it's really easy to protect the organization. And that is months and months and months of work to get to that point where they trust you like that. Other questions?
Just to piggyback off of that, I think one of the things that I can't emphasize enough is, like, it's really easy for us to cry wolf in security and constantly escalate everything up to the highest level. And so I think that's a part of the soft skills and the communication piece, is understanding when we need to communicate and how we need to communicate and to what level we need to communicate to. Can we take everything up to the CTO that's happening in his org? Yeah, we can, but ultimately he's going to stop listening. He or she's going to stop listening to you. Whereas if you go and work with individual engineers, even as the CISO, you go talk to individual engineers about these tasks and help them to understand why they need to work on it. Ultimately, when you do take those big issues up to the CTO or to the CEO, they know you're bringing it for a reason, and that it's not just another air horn or another cry wolf that's happening from the security side.
You know, I really like the question that you asked, because when we're talking about collaboration, and we're talking about why we're here and why we have these CISOs up here at the table to answer your questions, it really is about collaboration and information sharing. And I don't know the scenario that you have that might be an issue where you need to have to secure those phones down. But I bet other people here in this room might run into that issue or have run into the issue, and they really didn't know how to deal with it. So for the panel, what do you see in terms of collaboration, whether it be conferences like this or even ISACs or CISOs getting together or security professionals getting together? How do you see that really enhancing cybersecurity practices, really helping people get better?
There's only so much that a set of standards can do, and standards are great. It's a standard, it's a framework, it's a baseline. And once you have your baseline, and they don't change the standard all that frequently, it's a good best practice, and that's where you start. This is where the butter meets the bread. This is where you understand, oh, okay, well, the standard says this, especially if you have compliance. If you have any federal compliance that you're supposed to meet in your organization, honestly, I'd rather be 100% secure and fail every compliance audit than be 100% compliant and have some giant security holes. So, but I'm not saying don't be compliant. I'm not.
We only have a few compliance people here. So.
Right. And I've been a compliance people. And my concern as a compliance person was, why are we spending so much of our time, the NERC SIP compliance on the utility side? My goodness. Anyway, I would rather be secure though, but you can't take the federal hit on not being compliant. I was going somewhere with that, wasn't I? When we collaborate, we're able to find some of those weaknesses in the systems. And not that the standards are bad. The standards are great. And without a standard, you don't have a good starting point. If we all agreed on having a standard, just saying, yeah, I'm going to have a standard. I don't care which one it is. Just say, I'm going to have a standard, and that's your good starting point. But I think that's where the strength of this kind of community is.
I think community is the key here, is what we're talking about. We have strength in numbers, right? This is a great community. Talking amongst ourselves and understanding and sharing experiences is valuable, because that means you don't have to experience the same thing I did, because I can share what I did or what I didn't do or how I failed. So find different communities. I've found some online communities, CISO Society, through a Slack channel that allows me to say, hey, anybody seen this vendor? What do you think? And so forth. So I don't have to go out and do all the research. I've got people that are going to help me. And really, that's the benefit of the community, is you don't have to be an expert on everything. You ask the community to help you.
I mean, that's what it is, right? Is getting that help and understanding, what everybody else is doing. It's been extremely helpful for me over the last 6 years as a CISO, because not every company does the same thing, nor do they need to do the same thing, right? There's a difference between needing to operate, say, as a DoD contractor, where we're dealing with sensitive or classified information, versus a business that is operating in the public sector, not touching PII, right? There's a huge difference in potentially what we need to be doing. And I know I've said it a couple of times, but ultimately, it's good to know what other CISOs are doing or what other security teams are doing, so that you can try to right-size the control or the capability for your organization and the risk tolerance that your organization has, you can align it to the business. I think we can look over on the technology side and see great examples of how that community has operated, because what two companies operate with the same type of development life cycle? They may call it DevOps, they may call it Agile. Guarantee you it's not the same. But CTOs are talking to each other, CIOs are talking to each other to understand how their organizations are operating. They're developing their own metrics. That's the same thing that we need to do, and I think it's just great to understand what other CISOs and what other security leaders are doing, what metrics they're utilizing, what types of controls they're using, what tools they're using, what their ecosystem looks like, what their architecture is. It's all chances to kind of learn new opportunities to improve the business or open up your eyes to new technologies.
Yes, we have a question here. So let's, we got the mic coming, so give us
Real,
just a
real
second.
quick, we did have an online question that was requested.
Okay.
I'll get to that now. From Muhammad Ali. Question, considering the ongoing tension between privacy and security, where do you believe the ethical red line is?
Good luck on that one, guys. That's
ethical red line. I don't even know how to start that one, and I'm trying to think back with as being a CISO and enacting DPO, which I honestly am not fond of, because I think there's a difference in obligations for a DPO versus a CISO. My role as a CISO, when I put that hat on, is to what's best for the company. That may not always be 100% security, and it may not be what's best for the data owner, whereas the DPO, the responsibility is what's best for the data owner, which may not always be what's best for the company. So even with that, I'm still kind of struggling where that red line is at. I don't think we found it, I guess is my answer.
Don't go at it alone.
yes.
Get a committee together to understand it, right? You're going to have folks that are privacy-centric.
Yep.
I'm in healthcare, so there is a privacy portion to HIPAA. There is a security component. We have committee meetings every month to talk about which is which and where that line of demarcation is.
What I've always used is, number one, I have always said that the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, was the first DPO, Data Protection Officer, because that's what we've always done. But what I've always used is data privacy tells you the data you can have, and then security protects that data. Because the privacy will tell you if you can or can't have the data and how you use it and such, but then security is all the controls you wrap around that data. So we did have a question up here. Can we get one of the mics?
I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's for the online folks.
Yep.
Well, I had a statement first, and then I have a question. An incident is not always a breach, but a breach always stems from an incident. So do not hesitate to report an incident, because you could really be the number one guy in the whole company if you do. The second question I have is that how prepared do you feel that the CEOs are for things like in the Department of Defense, they are going to have to attest that they are doing all of the things that you IT people say you're going to do if they do have a breach and have any kind of an issue. And the same thing is getting ready to happen with healthcare, that the CEOs will have to attest that they are following all those guidelines in the new security rule.
Very few. And I say that with a heavy heart, because some of it is due to the fact that some of our brethren and sisters are talking about fear. They're really all about making people fear it rather than address it. The second component is who is actually responsible and accountable for it. There aren't enough regulations, not that I like regulations, that stipulate who is responsible for what. But if you think about it from an SEC perspective, they made it very clear. The boards of directors are accountable, and those boards must have cybersecurity experience on them. I would challenge that many of them have it.
I don't think that's happening.
So it really comes down to that accountability has to have teeth, and it can't be passed. It can't be, oh, Uber, CISO, he's responsible. We got to think about it more in terms of the entire organization.
Yeah, and being able to report an event or incident within a certain prescribed amount of time based on the regulatory obligation, it really helps the organization as a whole. And nobody wants to be in the news. That's the thing. It's all, well, we want to keep it private because what would our customers think? What would our shareholders think? What would our whoever think? That's fine, but if you're not reporting it, it's probably going to get out anyway, and better to be upfront and report. You're not reporting it to the news media, you're just reporting it to your regulatory body at that point. And so I think it's important that people not have a fear. Back in the utility industry, we invited some federal folks to come and tour our facility and give us an unbiased, basically a vulnerability scan. And somebody said, no, you don't want the feds coming. It's like, no, I do want the feds coming because I don't know what I don't know. And if they find something I don't know, they're not going to shut us down. They're going to help us fix it. You know what happened? They didn't find anything, but they said, wow, we're glad that you invited us and we'd like more people to be a model. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying people that have that fear that they can't report upline, they can't engage the FBI when they have a breach, they can't engage CISA. My goodness, you need to. They've got the tools, they've got the experience, and they can help you get back. And your cyber insurance people will say, no, keep the FBI out so we can do the forensics, blah, blah, blah. Let them help you. Let them help you. They'll be a partner.
On my last board, I had 2 CISOs on the board. It was fantastic. I didn't have to argue with the board ever. They did all that. They were completely supportive. I mean, it was challenging. I mean, they held me to high expectations. But when I said I needed something, they were like, yes, he does. He needs this. We need to fix this. So I hope that more boards get CISOs on them. And I hope that those CISOs really can help that organization get better, because it's just, for me, I had a really good experience with it. It was great. But I hope that that's why they're doing it, and that is the effect that happens from it. Okay, we've only got a couple minutes left, so we have a question over here. So we're going to make him run with the mic.
Hey, Bill, I mean, you talk a lot about having redundancy, plan B. So my question is more on a personal front. So having this
Get
sort of...
a little closer to the mic so we can hear you, so they can hear you online too.
Yeah, more on redundancy and plan B, right? So I'm someone like, you go out on a long trip, I want to make sure I have a spare tire, you go to a park, you need some medical kit. So this kind of mindset kind of translates into your workspace as well. So how much baggage that kind of adds in your head, right? Or how much toll it takes on you just to have this perspective carried over wherever you go, you have conflict of interest. So how do you handle those sort of extra pressure that puts on you, right? Where do you draw a line? We have done enough backups. Do you want a backup for a backup for a backup? So where do you draw a line, and how do you feel confident that we have done enough? It's good for a company, but it does put a lot of pressure on you, but how do you handle that?
It does put a lot of pressure on you, but that's the part about being transparent and bringing the risk to other people, right, to the board, et cetera, so that it's not on your shoulders. I'm dealing with a customer right now that hides risk from the board because his perspective is that means they're not going to do anything about it and I'm responsible. No, it's the other way around. Yeah. Give it to them.
Okay.
It takes it off your shoulders. Mm-hmm. So first and foremost there. Secondly is understand it's what is reasonable. They're not asking you to go through quantum physics and figure out a wormhole tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's really about what is reasonable from where you are today to how you get to tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. So we need well, this is at least my mentality, and I'm 2 months into a new CISO role, and this is part of what I've been communicating to the CEO, CFO, CTO, CPO, like all the C-suite, right, and the board is, my role is not to accept risk. My role is to advise the business on what they're accepting, and for the business to make the justification as to why they're accepting that risk. So when it comes to like the backups, I'm all for, good solid backup strategy, but it needs to meet the RTO and RPO plan, right? Like it doesn't help us if we're taking snapshots every 2 weeks and our RPO is 5 hours, right? So it needs to meet that. And then the flip side of it too is like, why do we need to take more than, a couple of days worth of snapshots and then roll those up to weekly and then monthly into yearly? Like what would be the gain from that? So it's talking to the business about the benefits versus the risks and trying to put that in terms. And so I think that's a big part of it. And that's, I think, why we're seeing the SEC say that the board of directors are ultimately responsible, is because it's just like with the CFO. Ultimately, the CEO and the board is responsible for the performance of the business. Now, the CFO might lose their job with the CEO, but odds are the CEO loses the job first and then the CFO.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for staying for the panel. Thank you to the panel members. This has been wonderful. Have a wonderful rest of the day. I think Kim is coming up to do final pieces, and we appreciate you guys listening to us.